Hello and welcome to the show. I'm your host, Rodney Lambeth, bringing to you another episode of School of Wealth. And today I have a very special guest on. His name is Dr. Jason Bradley, calling all the way in from Iowa. How you doing, Jason?
I'm doing great, Rodney. Thanks for having me on.
Or do you prefer doctor? I know you worked awful hard for that.
It's funny, my mother, when I'd go to like a party and she would introduce me literally with this voice. This is my son, Dr. Jason Bradley, and really have to emphasize this. And of course, that sets up a massive precedent, it's a massive setup. So my mom stopped doing it when I picked up the joke and started using it. Hi, yeah, I'm Dr. Bradley. You should meet my brother, Senator, and my sister, Governor. And, and my mom stopped doing it at that point. So.
Okay. So let's talk about COVID. That's why you're here today.
Let's talk about COVID, yeah.
Tell me all about this Chinese flu that has shut down our economy and shut down the world.
Well, I think it's, first of all, just to preface what I know, I'm as fascinated and confused with the information coming in as just about anybody, right? I mean, we have experts on both sides of, let me also say that unfortunately it's been politicized beyond recognition, so we have people coming in from both sides, claiming, opposing viewpoints that can't both be true. And then the average, American in the population is supposed to say, well, I'm on this side or this side. And I think that that's just a ridiculous stance to begin with. The reality is, it seems like the more we know, the more questions that we have. I will say that it seems like a unique virus. It has a unique structure, which of course brings up the whole question of like, was it man-made because it's unique? But the virologist that I spoke with when I was doing my own, I have a class coming up on this later tonight that we're recording this. So I was talking to some virologists, and ultimately they said that it's not perfect enough to have been engineered, if that makes any sense, right? So not that it couldn't have been. It's just that if they did kind of a shit job with it, right? So I mean, there's that to contend with, and again, so it seems like a mutation. However, it should have been about a 50-year mutation from the last SARS, and as we know, it hasn't been 50 years of SARS, right? So it was an accelerated mutation. We don't really know what's going on, so we have that whole thing to contend with. Since it's new, we don't know what outcomes to expect. And I think that what we all want is somebody in authority to say, this is bad or it's not, that we're going to be confined or we're not for this long, and then it's going to be over. And, nobody knows. I mean, according to the authorities, nobody really knows what to expect. I mean, so we put everybody in home quarantine, and there's a whole argument there to talk about too. But even though we did that, and maybe we flatten the curve and this and that, what happens when we release everybody? I mean, we don't know. There's talks about vaccines. First of all, they're 12 to 18 months off, and that's as long as we don't rush it. There are avenues to rush drugs and vaccines and medications, but ultimately, the more we rush it, the more risk we present to the population, obviously, and things are already risky enough. And besides all that, we don't even know what lifelong immunity looks like. We don't know if you contract it. Are you immune for the rest of your life? Are you going to get it every year like the flu? If we do develop a vaccine, is it good? And let's pretend it's safe and effective, and it's like got no additives in it, so the anti-vax people aren't upset. I mean, it's like the most perfect vaccine ever. Does it matter? I mean, is it going to give us permanent immunity, or a few months, or a few years, or what does that look? We don't know. Not to mention the testing that's available is, to be polite, just absolute crap. So I mean, we don't know. I mean, there you go. And I didn't get into the drug therapies, so I don't know. There's a lot going on. There's a lot to talk about and unpack.
So what can people do other than washing their hands? Obviously, wash your hands, stop touching your freaking face.
Right.
What else can people do to prevent it? As I scratch my beard.
I know, now that you say that, I mean, that's it's like, don't think about an elephant, and that's all you can think about, right? But no, it's true. I mean, I think as far as, again, I don't know how to say this without just sounding a little crazy, but I'm a little crazy anyway. If we go on face value with what's reported to us and try to stay out of the conspiracy theory lanes, just if we just happen to do that, and we say, okay, given everything that I just rattled off, what does the CDC say? And like you said, wash your hands, don't touch your face, wear a mask. I mean, home quarantine for, I think at first we heard 2 weeks, and then it was 4 weeks, and now it's like 4 years or something. Like, I don't know how long it's going to go on. But nonetheless, it's not bad advice, but it really doesn't do anything at all to other than prevent the spread, or maybe contacting it yourself. It doesn't do anything to help your system out if you have it. I mean, nothing that was presented to any of us has been, okay, so you're feeling this way, here's what to do, right? And again, I can't give, specific medical advice, to a general audience, but I can say there's some general things that most people could do very safely. And of course, and I can't imagine that you'd need to do this, but of course, if you have questions about what I'm saying, check with your personal doctor. But I mean, I always tell my patients, when first signs of being ill, right? There's 3 things that you can do: rest, heat, and fluids, right? I mean, no one's going to go wrong with that approach. When we're resting, our body is repairing tissue. Heat is important for, it's why we get a fever, where our bodies spike fevers, because viruses and bacteria are what we call heat labile, or easily destroyed in heat, as opposed to heat stable or stabile. So that's why our bodies get fevers. The difference between bacteria and viruses: bacteria typically spike really high fevers, and viruses typically don't, just because they're not a living organism. It's just a piece of code. So our body has to recognize that genetic code has been inserted into us, and that it's foreign, and then it mounts the attack. So it takes a little bit longer with a viral attack than a bacterial attack. But nonetheless, heat is good. So I always tell my clients, get in a hot bath, sit in a sauna, drink hot fluids, and then coming back to fluids, water. I mean, hot water, tap water if you want, filtered water, whatever you want, but keep yourself hydrated, because a dehydrated system is automatically going to be more inflamed, and automatically going to have a weakened immune system response. So again, rest, heat, and fluids, it's hard to go wrong with that. But again, if your listeners are concerned about it, they could check with their doctor. I can't imagine a doctor that would say that's bad advice. Although, you know what? There are some doctors out there that might.
Yeah, because I basically had no immune system left after struggling with this Lyme disease for so long. I don't remember what my CD57 was, but the first time I was hospitalized, I was put in quarantine because they thought I had full-blown AIDS. That's how bad my immune system was. Once they figured out I didn't have HIV, they quarantined me for 10 days in ICU, because they had no idea why I was an organ failure. I had sepsis, I had pneumonia, fever, all of the stuff. And I kept telling them I have Lyme disease, and they're like, that doesn't exist. That's a mental thing. I'm like, well, it does exist, and that's what I have. So, but since then, I have been, I drink 1 gallon to 1.5 gallons of water every day. I consume through lipids 4,000 to 8,000 milligrams of vitamin C every day. And then I use colloidal silver in my CPAP machine, because I have central sleep apnea, which I believe is from the Lyme disease. And once the Lyme disease is gone, I think the sleep apnea, I have central sleep apnea, so not obstructive. What would you say? Would you yourself, without giving medical advice, do the high doses of vitamin C?
That's a great question. So jumping just on the COVID, right? There is at the government trials site, I can't think of what that's called, clinicaltrials.gov. Right now, a very large, or a large enough study that we're going to have some data back on this vitamin C question, right? Now, granted, I want you to know 2 things. Number 1, they're using IV vitamin C, and they're using, and I'll tell you the dose they're using, 24 grams a day. So I mean, so 24,000 milligrams a day, right? And that's a substantial load of vitamin C, right? And that's directly intravenous, right? Orally, really the way I was taught, again, so let me just go back to that statement. We know that 24 grams intravenous vitamin C is having enough of an effect on the viral load and the immune system response that there is a government trial on it right now, right? So I mean, that's an important, tidbit. Taking that to oral vitamin C, we know that no matter how much you take, you're not going to absorb as much as you're going to get from an IV load. And I like the fact that you're taking a liposomal version, that vitamin C wrapped in fat, it's going to be much better absorbed. When I was going through school, and I went through a few different nutrition trainings because I had a few different angles on it. Oh, they all said the same thing. Make sure it's liposomal if you're going to do oral. And also the patient, the client, the person is really limited to what's called a bowel tolerance dose, right? Because that's ultimately where vitamin C, I can't help the pun, but will bite you in the ass, right? Because it's not going to harm you by doing, quote, too much of it, but you could get some, very loose explosive bowel movements. So I think you're limited by that. So really again, if you were my patient, I would say kudos, let's push it to that bowel tolerance dose and then back off a little bit. And again, I think that you're doing a really good job there. Did that help?
That's what I've been telling everybody that listens is take the vitamin C until you get the loose bowels and then back it off a little bit.
Yeah.
When I was really sick 2 years ago, I was doing 50,000 milligrams 3 times a week IVs.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Where I had to stop because my arteries were getting so calcified that I had to stop for a while. Yeah. Now I do 50 grams per week. But you know what's funny with that is I hurt really bad when I do it. I can literally feel the spirochetes coming out of my bone marrow and bones because they start depositing. It's this weird feeling of, it feels like someone's crushing your bones, and it starts depositing stuff in my knees and my elbows and joints. You can feel that pain, and I get this burning warm sensation, and then that metal taste from the vitamin C. But one of the first times I had it done, I couldn't get in. I couldn't drive because I was so sick, and my wife at the time was gone. And I didn't think about doing Uber. But anyway, I had a nurse come, and he pushed 50 grams in like 15 minutes. So you know what happened to me?
Oh,
I was in so much pain. And then Michelle come home. She thought I was drunk because I was stumbling around and I had to crawl up to my bed because I couldn't walk because that should be like an hour and a half drip.
Oh, yeah.
10, 15 minutes. So that's good. With the vitamin C, the water, what about saunas? I was thinking about buying an infrared sauna. I saw one last night on Costco. They're sold out though. What about saunas sitting in? I heard somewhere where if you sit in a sauna 3 times a week, it increases your lifespan. What gives with that?
It's all true. Yeah. I mean, that's the interesting thing about saunas. I don't know that we fully understand it. I have a theory. I think we all have theories, right? But we know that cultures that emphasize saunas, have traditionally a little bit better health and a little longer lifespan. Certainly we have anecdotal stories where people say things like, fill in the blank diagnosis, right? Rheumatoid arthritis, Lyme, certainly thyroid patients, or I'm just tired, people that get in the sauna and they feel better. And they say, hey, when I do this regularly, I feel better. And then we get into the infrareds and then the, far and near. And we can get really hyper specific, but ultimately the literature is out there now. Saunas are a benefit. I don't think that anyone's even questioning that. I think the theory is, and we might even know what it does. Hey, when we're in a sauna, this is what happens, but I don't know that we fully understand the mechanism yet. I would, again, I don't have an affiliation with any specific sauna company, but I'm a big fan of home saunas. If you have the space and you have the ability to get one, I know it's on Rachel and I's, wish list right now. We're saving up for it, and hopefully, I think this year we're going to execute it. So I'm pretty excited about that to round out our workout area. And coming back to COVID, again, I don't know that we've studied saunas in COVID. I don't think that we can, or COVID-19 anyway. I don't think we can say that, but we can say that the common cold, the flus, and et cetera, we've looked at saunas and again, I'm not saying it's a treatment, but it probably heats the body up enough where, again, the bacteria or the virus or whatever you're suffering from probably dies off a little bit because, again, they're not stable with body heat. And again, probably the sauna is helping along those lines, lowering that bacterial load, lowering that viral load. And then, the metabolism is going to be sped up in the body. There's a lot that happens with heat, right? So how long to do it and what temperature, I don't know that. Whatever, I would say as warm as you can go for as long as you can tolerate within reason, and probably don't go over, 15 to 30 minutes, depending on your medical state, right?
So the infrared, I've never done the infrared, the home stuff. I found one in Costco. It's only like $1,300 for a
Yeah.
3-person infrared.
Oh, wow.
Again, they're sold out. But you think the infrared's better than going to the gym and sitting in the sauna at the gym?
Well, I think what we're seeing in the literature is that the infrared, the light wave, has some other benefits on on what we call photoreceptors,
Okay.
on our skin and in our retina, that might be stimulating other areas that we might not be thinking about. So everything from vitamin D conversion to neurotransmitters in our brain working different. I mean, just there's a whole host of stuff that seems to be happening with the infrared. Probably a little bit more modulation of the inflammatory cascade. Like I said, there's a number of little pieces there. If it was like a $1,300 jump to a $9,600 jump, I'd probably question that. But I think they're all about the same price right now, from what I'm
they're
seeing.
all around $3,000-ish, $2,500, because Costco just had a huge rebate on it.
That's a great deal, by the way. Yeah.
I keep checking it every day because they've been sold out for a while. What do you think about ionized foot baths? The ionizer foot baths.
I love these questions. I love that. First of all, I should let you know that I have invested, I don't even know how much, I don't even want to put a number on this. Between my education and, I'm going to call it trial and error, well over 7 figures in my life.
Yeah.
Okay. I mean, it's a staggering amount of money that if my poor mother heard me say it out loud, that I don't want to say wasted. That's not the word I want to say, but invested in finding the truth, right? And you're going to have some failures along the way. Foot baths are interesting. I own one. It's downstairs in our kind of, we have this workout area, and I don't know why it lives there, but that's where it lives. We don't really use it, and I will tell you, I go in and out of let me say differently. I want it to be real so desperately. I want it to work, but I'm not convinced of the science. Now, why would I have purchased one, right? I mean, they're not cheap, right? They're also not stupidly expensive, but they're not $50.
Yeah.
I wanted to try it out. Ultimately, I wanted to put myself on the regimen. I knew I wasn't going to go somewhere and pay somebody to do it, $50 or $100 a shot and have to do it, 50 times. I just bought one. I cost factored that out and I bought one. And I will say that every time I used it, it looked like stuff was being pulled out of my feet, right?
Yeah.
So there's no question about that. And I'll go so far as to say, take this for what you want. But, they come with these little color coders that are, if it's brown, it's this, it's red, like whatever you're seeing. And of course, I'm doing myself and it's kind of the same color all the time. So, then my wife tries it out and hers is similar, but slightly different. And then we have, I don't know if it was one of our kids or, a couple other people that tried it out. And again, theirs are slightly different, So I don't know. I mean, is it the pH of the skin? What's going on? I don't know what's going on there. I want it to be real. I've read about it. I've dug into it. I just, my left brain science end says it's not real, but my observation and my gut want it to be so real.
I know I use it quite a bit. And when I first started using it, it's the stuff coming out of it was very frothy and very oily and it stunk so bad.
Yep.
Now I still am oily and I call her my COVID partner. I had someone stay with me for the last 3.5 weeks. And so our joke is we're COVID-19 partners. And, her foot bath's completely different. Mine is still very oily. And then as you use it every other day, it gets lighter and lighter and lighter. And then I usually stop after about a week to 2 weeks because it gets so light and I let it build up. But I've done it with smokers and it's like this black tar that comes out of them.
It's super interesting.
And then I have to do monthly phlebotomies because of my Lyme, and I had a pulmonary embolism 2 years ago, and the risk of having a stroke is pretty high because of my hematocrit. So I do a monthly phlebotomy. Anyway, right before my phlebotomy last week, I did a foot bath, and I had these red chunks. What happens? It comes out of your pores of your feet, and then it collects together with light material. But I had these red chunks, and when I looked it up, it said blood clots. And so I immediately scheduled my phlebotomy, which, by the way, I couldn't find anybody here in Idaho to do it. So I went to someone's place that had a needle and a hose, and I gave myself a phlebotomy. But I've done thousands of IVs. I'm a retired fireman, so I've done thousands and thousands of IVs. So I stuck myself, drained a pint of blood out, and then I did the foot bath the next day, and the blood clot things were gone.
That's super interesting. And that's the kind of stuff I'm talking about, where it seems like it's observational. You can see it. But when I look at the science, I guess what I mean is, I'll go so far as to say this: maybe we don't understand the science. I mean, I know that we wanted to. I know they've written about it. I'm not sure they're right with, if it works. I'm not sure they're right with the way they say it works. Yeah. But again, I'll come back to, it's kind of like the vitamin C. It's not going to hurt anybody to do that, you know. And yeah, I mean, at all. I shouldn't say that. I'm sure we're in America. There'll be someone that will figure out how to hurt themselves.
You talk to your own doctor. Talk to your own doctor on this.
Right.
I don't know. I like it. I use it. I bought everybody in my family one for Christmas, so they're like $300 or something. Yeah. I bought my kids and my mom and some other people for Christmas. I use it. What about, I sleep with a BEMER mat. You ever messed with one of those?
I like the idea of those. Yeah. Oh boy. I had a little story I wanted to tell you about it, but no, I think that those are great. We had an acupuncturist that was at, we used to have a brick and mortar. I'm completely virtual now, which I love. I know you and I were chatting about working from home earlier, and I was going to tell you that I essentially work from home all the time. This is both my, what would be my living room, but it's also my office, right? So,
which, by the way, guys, if you follow the show, that is tax deductible, that little space. So you need to cross that out on your map and
absolutely
diagram to deduct that.
Hey, I've been trying to figure out if the business could just buy my house and I just lease it from the business. You know, I don't even know if that's a worthy tax strategy or not. But anyway,
so the answer is yes. The answer is yes, and you need to talk to your tax professional, which we can talk offline, and I can tell you how to do it.
Well, which is really funny too, because Rachel, my wife Rachel, who is by all means, and when you meet her, you'll understand both the brains and the beauty of the operation, and I truly mean that. So I was telling her about our interview today, and so she's doing her homework, and she got to your website, and she's like, "Can we just work with this guy?" And I said, "I'm pretty sure that we'll chat about it at some point," which was pretty funny. But anyway, yeah, I mean, there's so much out there. There's just so much out there. I mean, there really is.
There is just a ton of stuff. And then I just bought one of those chili pads. Have you ever heard of the chili pads?
I don't know. What's a chili pad?
Chili pad. It goes underneath your mattress pad, and it gets your mattress down to 55 degrees.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I figured that's what it was. I hadn't heard it called that, but yeah, no, that's.
Yeah, it's called a chili pad, and I got to tell you, I really like mine. The only thing that I don't like about it is it doesn't have a timer to automatically turn on. And so when you get in bed, you turn it on, it's not yet cold. It stays around 70 degrees instead of that 55. But you can also heat it up. So yesterday was day 30 of phase 1 for me for 75 hard. And part of that is taking 5-minute cold showers. Well, the water here in Idaho is 49 degrees. 5 minutes is a long time. 49-degree water. But my last night that I did it, I did it at night. Normally do it during the day. So I heated up my chili pad to 110 degrees, made my nice little sauna, and then I finished my last shower. And then I climbed in my little bed and sauna. It was really nice. But
that sounds great.
Really cool. And then have you seen these?
Is that the or how do you say it?
The Oura ring.
Yeah.
Oura ring, really cool. And we'll put all this stuff in the show notes for you guys. This Oura ring's like $300. It tracks my sleep. But what's really neat about it, Jason, is, are you familiar with the Oura ring?
I don't own one, but I'm familiar with it. Yeah.
Yeah. So it keeps, I used to sleep like 10 to 12 hours a day, and I'd wake up tired. And since I started using the Oura ring, now I sleep 6 to 7 hours a day. I get more REM and more deep sleep, because I used to go to sleep at like 9 and then sleep until 8 to 9 o'clock. Now I go to sleep between 11:30 and 12:30, and I almost always go into REM or deep sleep around 1 a.m. And what I found is if I stay up after 1 a.m., I miss half of my REM and half of my deep. And so this ring's got these little sensors inside of it, keeps track of your body temperature, your breath rate, your heart rate, your stress levels, your steps. But it tells you when is the best time for your body to go to sleep scientifically versus, oh, I'm a morning person.
Mm-hmm.
And I've used to try to do that. I get up at like 5 o'clock in the morning, and by 10 o'clock, man, I needed a nap. And everybody talks about how much they get done early in the morning. I'm not very productive if I get up at 5 o'clock in the morning at all. I'd rather sleep till 8 and then go to bed at midnight.
Right.
That's just my body. So a lot of these things, and I know we didn't really plan on going over this stuff, but I think as a functional medicine and just trying to hack your way
Absolutely.
through
Biohacking is important. I mean, I'm hacking right now. I've got my amber glasses on, my Swanwicks, and I'm loving
those.
those.
What are those? Because I was going to ask you, I have it on my notes here. What are those?
So there's Swanwicks.
Swanwicks.
Yep. Like a swan, like a bird, and then wick, like a candle wick.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been sporting these for years at this point. They're blue light blockers. So I'm, probably like you, I'm in front of the screen a lot. Yeah. So sometimes I wear them, sometimes I don't, but certainly if I'm starting to get that eye strain, I do. And they have these are kind of dark lenses. They have some gray, they have different styles and versions and all that kind of jazz, right? But I've been a fan of these guys for so long. James Swanwick and Tristan, the owners, are both fantastic people. James is also a television producer over in Australia, and with his spare time, whatever that means, he has a mission where he's helping entrepreneurs quit drinking, basically, or quit abusing alcohol and drugs, which I think is a very noble effort, and I think it's something as entrepreneurs we don't talk a lot about. But we're all under a lot of stress and pressure, and anyway, so I like that they're doing that project. But what's really great is, like I said, I've been a fan of these guys forever, and I just met Tristan earlier this year, and he's a totally nice guy. Just like a really regular nice guy. And anyway, so now I'm promoting for him, but I highly recommend it. BioHacking and that Oura ring. I know that you are definitely connected with other entrepreneurs as well, and I will tell you that the highest level people that I know all have one of those rings. I haven't pulled the trigger yet, and I don't even know why. I have no reason not to have one. I just haven't ordered it, I think is what it comes down to.
Yeah, they're super cheap, and they're great, and it has helped me so much. And every single one of my friends has asked me about it, and they've all bought them, and they're all high-level CEOs and entrepreneurs. Right. It makes such a huge difference in their sleep and in their life, because scientifically, when your body goes into REM and when your body goes into deep sleep.
Well, yeah, and it reminds me a little bit of, are you familiar with the Muse device? Do you know what I'm talking about? Oh man, it's so great. It's just Muse. It's their general website is choosemuse.com, if I can say that on your show. But I have privately, I can share with you a link where you can get just a massive discount. We have that relationship with that company. But I recommend this Muse device to all of my clients. What it is a neurofeedback headband, I guess, if you'll let me say that. So it's in real time reading your brain waves. It syncs with your smartphone, of whatever smartphone. You've got your earbuds in, and they say it's a guided meditation, and it is, but not necessarily, and please excuse my French here, but it's not like in a hippy dippy way. It's very much like focus on the breath. If you want to listen to Deepak Chopra, talk, or somebody else, Morgan Freeman, they have some guided, meditations. But mostly what it is that you're focusing on your breath, and then you're listening to these sounds. And what happens when you're in a calm state, you hear a nice breeze or, some birds chirping. And then when your mind starts to wander, and certainly if it gets agitated, a storm comes in, and there's less birds and more of like, storm and wind and waves and whatever. And then pretty soon you're like, oh, wait, I'm listening to a storm. Let me refocus on my breath. And then you calm back down. And really what it's doing is training your brain to recognize when it's in an agitated state versus a calm state, and then training you over time how to stay in that calm state or return to that calm state, which again, I think for our entrepreneurs that are listening, that's amazing, right? Because again, we're under so much pressure and noise. all of the time. That's a really good skill to have. And those things are like first gen, second gen are like 150. They're like nothing, you know, and the app is free. So I mean, it's a minimum investment. They have some other versions that are a little bit more pricey, but I mean, I've got the first generation, and I think they're on like the fourth right now, and I love mine. I'm not even upgrading. I love it so much. But anyway, I recommend trying that out. It's cool.
Yeah, so that was choosemuse.com.
Yeah, choosemuse.com. Cool. Yep.
Yeah, send me that link because I'm going to buy one today.
Yeah.
You know, I try all this stuff. I just finished Dave Asprey's book, which I'm a fan of Dave Asprey, but becoming superhuman on how to biohack.
Yeah.
And then I started doing the Iceman Hoff breathing.
Yep. That's what I was going to say. That sounds like what you're doing with the shower and everything.
Yeah. And that's how I'm getting through the cold showers. I do 7-minute Hoff breathing. The first time I did it, there's a video of me on Instagram. I was so stoned out of my mind from this breathing technique and I have it on video. Like I was slurring and it was crazy. And then one last thing is Biome, Biome. You'd use that for your clients?
Well, it's interesting. Yeah. So they kind of have that little U in front of them. It's like Biome but it's Biome. I know exactly what you're talking about.
That's Biome, Biome. I'm friends with Bean and with Joe Dispenza.
Oh yeah. Yeah. So I love, it's the microbiome test, right?
Yeah.
I know I don't know these guys, but I know this test. Interestingly, earlier today, like 2-3 hours ago, I just did a whole hour-long lecture on the microbiome and what the implications are, how we're testing. I mean, all of those pieces, which is pretty funny. I did a generic test. I didn't name them, but you know, I basically was showing on that their test. So yeah, no, it's a very interesting test. What we know about the microbiome, you know, for sure is that we want diversity. So, I mean, that's one of the things that we can test. Another thing that we know about the microbiome, of course, is that yours is unique to you, which is super, super interesting, right? They say it's as unique as your fingerprint. And I think, you know, they say that every person on the planet probably has 1 or 2 fingerprint twins on the planet, right? So you might have 1 or 2 microbiome twins on the planet. But ultimately, that like mine might be perfectly healthy for me, but if we translated it to you, it might make you sicker than a dog, right? So that's super interesting. And then what I usually couple with the microbiome test is like a stool function test where I start looking at, are we putting out enough pancreatic, you know, digestive enzymes? What's our bile doing? You know, are we digesting those foods? And kind of looking at the function of the gut. I think those 2 tests are they should be used more in medicine. I mean, they're readily available, but nobody orders it. You know, we order it on all of our clients, but
good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's biome.com. It's Biome.com. Go there, sign up. I just bought 5 kits for $99 because they're normally $300, and they send out these specials. And when they do, I just buy a bunch of them and I give them away, and then I use them for myself. But here's when I first found out about this. I met him through Brad Lee in Las Vegas, and Naveen Jain, the founder of this, was on Brad's show. And I just had my heart attack, and I was eating spinach, tomatoes, and carrots. I was basically vegetarian, and it sucked. I was so sick, and I went to my cardiologist, and he's like, well, you had a heart attack. Of course you're weak. Of course you're not. And I'm like, I'd rather die than eat like this. Like, I feel horrible. So I was telling Naveen about it, and he's like, you're probably allergic to spinach. I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, 30% of humans are allergic to spinach. So I did my biome, and guess what? I'm allergic to spinach and tomatoes and garlic and all the stuff the cardiologist had me eating that I would eat, and I'd be in the bathroom within 15 to 20 minutes. And so then I switched, and now I'm fairly keto. I eat a lot of fat and a lot of clean meat, and I feel great. If I eat any bread or spinach, I'm sick again.
Right.
So the microbiome is so important to know what and it changes every 90 days if you're sick.
It really does. Yeah, I was just I fascinated by this stuff. Like I said, I just gave this class on it. I had to get recertified for my boards in the fall, and you know, I always think that I'm, Mr. Wizard with everything. And man, I got schooled a little bit. I did pass. I'm pretty excited about that. But nonetheless, what I didn't realize when I was reviewing the material on the gut and the microbiome is that just one dose of any of the NSAIDs, right? So ibuprofen, naproxen sodium, aspirin, just one dose of that can upset the microbiome permanently.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you're going out of your way to repair it or, whatever.
Yeah.
Well, I'm thinking, how many times have I just, in my, 40 plus years on this planet, had a headache and popped some Tylenol or popped some, ibuprofen or whatever it is, and not even thought about it, And then when I step back and start looking at my clients and we really go in and analyze what's going on with their food sensitivities, what's going on with their probiotic load, their microbiome, what's going on with their function. We find so many problems with the gut. I mean, so many problems with the gut. And then of course I start thinking, I bet it's because we're just popping those pills like they're Pez candy,
When I was super sick with Lyme, when I was going through that chemo stuff, I was taking 200 milligrams a day of Advil. Yep. And I told Naveen, I keep trying to say Naveen, but it's Naveen Jain. And he's like, yeah, you're destroying your gut. And so now I'm on a protocol of rebuilding it, which is my last thing, which you should check out, Cocoon Water, K-A-Q-U-N, Cocoon.
I don't know about this. Tell me about it.
Cocoon Water, I know the inventor and I know the daughter who runs the treatment center in Las Vegas. At 19 years old, Annika was diagnosed with stage 4 pancreatic cancer, which has a very, very small survival rate, right? She's now in her 30s, has a couple kids, doing very, very well. Her dad was a Hungarian scientist, cancer scientist, and he was already trying to figure out how to cure cancer and stop it. And what he found was most cancers caused from non-oxygenated cells that refuse to die. Then the layman's way to explain it is that cell is a zombie cell. The other cells go around it, which like a rotten apple, it infects all of them. So then they start building tumors around it. And what he found was if you can drink enough oxygen, and I said drink oxygen, then you can actually hyperoxygenate your cells in your body, which then kills the cancer cells completely. He has over 4,000 documented cures of cancer. Now, his treatment center is a wellness spa, not a cancer treatment. But I've personally seen people that have Lyme disease so bad that go in wheelchairs and then walk out after doing the bath. So you take a bath in this water, but it's called Cocoon Water, K-A-Q-U-N water. You can buy it. I buy it. I drink a gallon of it every day. Within 8 seconds of drinking it, your heart is 100% oxygenated. They got several studies they've done where they've killed mice, injected them with this water and brought them back to life, where the ones that they electrocuted, that they didn't give the water to, they could never bring it back. So all kind of cool studies on it.
Yeah, I was going to say, just while you were, I of course, internet age here, while you were chatting, I was looking it up a little bit. And, one of the more interesting pieces of this, I'm going to have to read about it. I'm fascinated by it. One of the more interesting pieces to me is when I did my quick search, of course, buy it here, do this, whatever, but maybe like only five down in my Google search, there's some published articles in the medical literature on this water, K-A-Q-U-N. And I shared one with you there in the chat, and it's interesting. I'll read you the conclusion. It says the increase in oxygen concentration caused by cocoon water affects several immune functions. The killing of these granulocytes is elevated. The activation of lymphocytes, elevated natural killer cells or NK cells to combat virally infected and tumorous cells. Basically, again, just a quick little one-off article there, but there's published data that I've never read that ever before in my life, that oxygen enhanced water, it has been shown in the literature to kill tumorous cells. So this isn't just like, somebody saying it. This has been studied and at least good enough to be published, at least to be looked at again, so that's super interesting. I'll have to look at that.
Yeah, I'll send you 2 studies that they sent me. I know when I go in and do the baths, I had to start out with 1 bath a day because the first time I did it, I couldn't drive home and I was slurring. And I was so drunk, stone feeling because I was
Right.
herxing so bad. I eventually made it up to 2 baths a day. But then when I made it to 3, I couldn't handle the pain because it causes the herxing for the line. If you're not sick though, you don't have pain. You just have a tremendous amount of energy. But what he's done is he's figured out how to way to make each molecule of water. It's not H2O, so it's not 1 hydrogen and 2 oxygen. It's 1 hydrogen and 64 oxygen. So it's H64O. And you drink it, and it tastes like regular water. The only thing with you drinking it, I drink so much of it, is I have to take a lot of minerals, and I mix a tablespoon of Himalayan pink salt in it because I was starting to get leg cramps, and it was because there's so much oxygen, it starts pulling the minerals out of your bones. So they recommend that if you're drinking a gallon of it a day, that you should mix minerals and salts and stuff with it. So
Yep.
But I think this show, I don't know if anybody else likes it. It's kind of like my own personal Ask the Doctor show.
No, it's great. I love it. First of all, like I told you, I mean, I all of this stuff is right up my alley. I mean, I have a whole section. We have an online curriculum, and part of that, embedded in that curriculum, is biohacks in every one of the modules. So I mean, this is great. I'm going to just look into the biohacks that you mentioned to me. The cool mattress, the cocoon. I'm also going to look at the RGGC. I mean, I got some good stuff out of this. This is great. Thank you.
So where do people find you?
Yeah, lately I'll give you the website. It's epicfunctionalmedicine.com. So really, EPIC, epicfunctionalmedicine.com. Super simple.
Okay.
On social media, we have a number of different avenues there, but obviously, Epic Functional Medicine on Facebook. I think we're Epic FMC on Instagram. I am personally Dr. J Bradley, Dr. J Bradley, at Dr. J Bradley, and also at Dr. Jason Bradley on Facebook. So I mean, I'm readily accessible. I've been spending my time, lately just trying to sift through, like I said, some of that noise about COVID and make some sense of it, and get some PSAs out there just so that people aren't misinformed or disinformed and are empowered. But ultimately, the crux of my job, I don't like to say I have a job. I don't want to grow up yet, right? But the crux of what I do, my party line is, when people ask me what I do for a living, I always say I solve problems that people don't even know that they have. Because we're doing such a deep dive into chemistry with their bodies, and really kind of biohacking their chemistry, their hormones, their nutrients, their immune systems, and then also giving them lifestyle hacks, like the things that we were talking about today, that when we start pooling that together and people start following that system, they just get better, over time. So that's I guess my 2 cents about how to find me and who should find me.
Okay.
Yeah.
Awesome. So we'll make sure we put that in the show notes as well. And it's
Cool.
been great having you on the show. I really appreciate you spending this time with me and just going back and forth with our biohacking and all that stuff. So
yeah, it was a lot of fun. And anytime you want to talk about biohacking or any whatever, I mean, let me know, because I have a lot of fun doing it. So yeah, thank you.
Very cool. All right. So if you like today's show, please share it. Please leave me a review. It helps out with the iTunes algorithm. And then also follow me on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube at Rondi Lambeth. That's Rondi Lambeth. All right. Thanks a lot. See you later.
Thanks.